Buenos nachos, amigos. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Record Breakers. I'm Petey Rape, your man with no plan. Here with me is my team. We've got none other than Brett.
I'm a white dude.
Mm-hmm. We've got Patrick.
Also pretty much white.
And we've got Drew.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're Italian. You're half a white dude.
Well, during a certain period of time, we would call people white people, and then there would be Drew's people.
Yes,
but now he's been swallowed.
The white people have taken the people,
as they are wont to do.
We get credit, so it's like win-win. It's fine.
Yeah. But unrelated to white people, or maybe related to white people, I don't know. We have music. Rhythm, so it is unrelated to white people, but that's beside the point. We have music to talk about this week, and the provider of said music is none other than Patrick. Patrick, what do you got for us this week?
So, I know y'all don't like the screamy music, but this album is worth listening to because it is such a weird combination of genres put together so well. It's a band called Deafheaven, and their album Sunbather. It is a blend of the stylings of black metal and the stylings of shoegaze.
Mm-hmm. What expectations did you have coming into this, Brett?
Oh, I had none. I remember being at a baseball game with one Petey, who's right over there. And he was like, hey, we got to listen to this album sometime. And I'm like, oh, crap, what is it called? And I forget what you said. Def Leppard, something along the lines of Def Leppard joke. And I was like, what is this going to be? I know he told me what it was. All I know is that I'm going to probably not like it, is what I remember him saying to me.
Yeah. Drew, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, apparently more than Brett, because I listened to the man when he was speaking. So I knew that we were going to get death metal and it was going to be screaming music. And I don't, as I've said before, if I want screamy, I want screaming about Vikings and stuff of that nature. But like, then he said shoegaze, which is a genre I've heard of, sort of, but never really gotten into. So I was sort of confused on that point. And he said it was weird. And it's Patrick. And weird usually means bad when it comes to Patrick. So I was a little bit scared. But willing to try anything once.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, how would you describe the themes and elements to this album?
So, to start with, black metal is probably the most maligned genre of metal, because metal is one of those, there's a million subgenres. Black metal is usually Norwegian in nature and historically about Satan, the occult, and then more recently Norse mythology, as after all like the church burnings of the early 90s. But stylistically, it's lots of blast beats and usually fairly high screamed vocals. It also, there's a lot more atmospheric and sort of synthy stuff that you usually don't get in death metal. It's sort of its own separate thing. Then there's shoegaze, which really is crazy reverbed out guitar alt rock. The best known practitioners of are a band called My Bloody Valentine from Ireland. And side note, go listen to My Bloody Valentine Loveless, because that album's also freaking amazing, and I'll probably bring it here later. Mm-hmm. But it's metal genres tend to be very, very, metal as a genre is very technical, and it's all about shreddies and meedly me's. And this album is art kid music. Like, this is emotional, and metal is not a genre known for having feelings. It's usually talking about things that are not feelings, and metal guys don't have feelings and they don't cry. And these are people with feelings and emotions, and they're singing about stuff that isn't traditionally metal themes, and sort of mixing, metal's most, quote unquote extreme genre of black metal with shoegaze, which is music for soft people. And that sort of has split the metal community. Some people love it. Some people think it's the devil. I personally think it's the freshest thing I've heard in metal in, I don't know, I can't think of the last time a band genuinely sounded so different than their contemporaries and did something this interesting and different.
Let me tell you a story. There's a joke called The Aristocrats. It's a joke. It's an old kind of a dirty joke from the vaudeville era that's now exists as mostly a dirty, vulgar, inside joke, mostly masturbatory for comedians to amuse other comedians, and mostly people who are in the know to entertain each other. Brett, what are the themes and elements that caught your attention?
Well, I mean, this is a show where we give our personal opinion, right? You know, there's no right or wrong when you make art. On the other hand, there's a wrong way to make music for Brett Hibbert. You know, I just gotta say, I didn't get it. If you sing Scream, you're telling me that your lyrics are more a percussion instrument than a lyrical, you know, you're not sending me a message that is easily translatable. Like, you know, it's like singing a hieroglyphic, which I want to try and do someday. But no, you know, it had some really overly played instruments, had some very underplayed other instruments. And for a few songs, it was the reverb was coming from inside of its own ass, in which it was playing within. But you know, as an album that was as highly regarded and considered, you know, approachable to people who aren't into this, I don't imagine the lady behind me, who is my mother, back there would enjoy this album at all. Nor do I think, you know, the art kids. Remember, musicians are art kids too. I've played around with a bunch of them. I don't think that this is there is no jump splits, for one, no jump splits. There are no beatly doos. There is a set of drums that's slightly out of time at one point, but other than that, you know, they made the album they wanted and it was successful. And I'm just a white dude in Indiana. So.
Drew, what kind of themes and elements caught your attention?
Well, let me settle in here. I was actually really surprised by this record. I was expecting a lot of screaming. I was expecting a lot of distorted guitar, and you know what? You got a lot of that. Apparently, in my research, finding out from the what shoegaze sort of is, they use a lot of distortion and a lot of the sort of wall of sound effect to the music, and you got that here. You got that level of distortion, but in the quiet moments, like in the sort of downplayed moments, it had like a really cool feel to it. It had a lot of cool melodic parts, and I would actually like this band to do an entire like album or like an EP of just those sort of parts, just that sort of softer ambient music, and see what that would be like, because I think it would be really cool. That being said, the distorted wall of sound effect did have its cooler moments in it. It was sort of, shoegaze I saw was referred to as like the music scene that celebrated itself, and that to me very much screams sort of the hoity-toity, like you would say, the art kids, the yes, I know art and I know music and all that theory stuff, and that to a degree can be cool. Jazz does it, but jazz does it more on Front Street. Jazz does it like very much in your face, like, hey, we're musicians and we're really fucking good at this. So check out the cool things that we do. The wall of sound sort of hid some of the cool music that was going on in the background, and I sort of dug that. It was sort of the way of them hiding it so that the only people that really gave a crap were people who were willing to sort of dive behind that. Is diving behind it for everybody? No. Is this going to get regular rotation for me? Probably not. Was it a cool effect? Was it something cool to listen to? Yeah. And the screaming vocals, as I said up front, screaming vocals are usually not my thing. Almost always not my thing. But the vocals were mixed very low. And like Brett said, they used them more as almost a percussive instrument. It was very much mixed in and not mixed on top of. And that to me screams that the vocals really, for the most part, could be forgotten about as lyrics and be thought of as just that, as a vocal instrument, and that was fine. And treating them as that, I could kind of forget them and not be burdened with trying to figure out what the vocals were in screaming music, which is part of the reason why I don't like screaming music. It's like, oh, I gotta figure out what the lyrics are, and then I can't, and then I feel bad.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it. There's a phenomenon where they say that you can hear, they mostly talk about with ghosts. You can make somebody hear words in a random noise if you show them and tell them that that's what you're hearing.
They did that with backward tracking a bunch back in the devil scare and heavy metal.
I was listening.
Backmasking.
I was listening to this on Spotify. Spotify has lyrics now. I didn't hear any of the lyrics. I could not even get suggested the lyrics of the song. It can make me hear it. I couldn't even force myself to hear these lyrics.
Were they in English? Were the lyrics in English?
They're from San Francisco. They are American boys.
They weren't like just Esperanto or.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks to key in on?
Do the Record Breakers thing, the opener and the song. I mean, it was the first thing I ever heard from these guys. I got this album from a friend I used to work with who was like a sort of music nerd like me, who had weird far-spanning tastes. And he put a bunch of music on an iPod, on a thumb drive, and gave it to me. And this was one of them. Dreamhouse is like, if this song drives you crazy, you're not going to like the record. But if you like this, or if you're like, wait, what? It's the one that makes you want to keep going. You get the weird reverbed out guitar, and sort of one of the sort of tenets of shoegaze was this crazy wall of sound reverbed guitars where the reverb's cranked and you get this. It creates sort of a texture and an atmosphere. And I think that, like, the word of this album is it's about the atmosphere it creates. It does get very, 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 very dense, but it's specifically to try to create this sort of crazy sound. One of the things on this record that I keep coming back to and realizing, the drums are unbelievable for what they are. Like, this is not Mike Portnoy playing 64th notes perfectly on beat. This is somehow combining like the energy of a punk drummer with the speed and, running on kicks that you see in metal. And then also, really, really technical cymbal work, especially on the ride cymbal. And a lot of times where he's bouncing between the ride and the bell and changing up patterns. And you get kind of all of that in here. Sunbather, the title track. The guitars at the beginning are awesome. It really, really, really good use of dissonance and having, and sort of one of the My Bloody Valentine things is basically bending whole chords and having it sort of fall out of phase, go out of tune, and then come back in and sort of resolve itself. And it almost sounds a little bit like just the guitar is getting tape warble. And it's a thing that Kevin Shields sort of, perfected. And then, these guys sort of picked up on it. And then, so the album's sort of basically 4 tracks and then 3 of the interludes that Drew talked about, which are usually a lot softer and a lot weirder. And of those, Please Remember is probably my favorite of them, because it's just weird, creepy spoken word, lots of interesting sounds. And it allows like these big 10 or 11 minute crazy intense songs that, build and fall and build and fall. And then you get kind of a few minutes of just breathing room, and then it hits you again. And I think the album works better as one piece than as individual tracks, but those are the ones I like.
Brett, what will be some of the key tracks for you?
All right, the album starts off, Dream House. I imagine it's supposed to be like it was supposed to be the big, brooding album opener to really set things off. It didn't really, move me or start me off. Really, it told me a little bit of what was to come, but there was, it didn't tell me any of, I was expecting there to be like ridiculous, like to the definition of ridiculous drums, just powering through this entire album. And I was going to be like, okay, what? And just like simple guitar stuff that really wasn't, obviously on the forefront of this album. But it was a certain style of noise that, I can get into some Minor Threat, but I just, there's a point where I just have to let go and be like, I'm never going to get it. And that was the point of the album when I was like, I'm just not going to be able to get it. Then Irresistible, right on the tails of that, it is a song that would be fairly impressive for two stone kids at a Guitar Center to hammer out together, but it wasn't really musically challenged, and it was played while somebody was just pounding chords into a piano, which didn't really grab me. But like the dissonance and the amount of the difference between the two songs is notable. And then there was a song that was, I would have to say, one of the laziest songs that I've heard on a album that has been considered to be as good as this one. It is a song where they used the audio from a Fire and Brimstone sermon and just jangle like really simple stuff over it. Listen to the song, form an opinion of something that's like something I'd say, and you're likely correct. I don't really have words to describe like that. Like, are they trying to say something, or is this like, this is a really, really good sermon? Like, I don't know. Like, it was just kind of cheap. And that song was called Windows.
Yes.
Which, are they talking about developers in that? Is there a message that I did not get?
It's about the great oratory powers of one, what's his face? That owns the Clippers right now.
That song,
Steve
it's got
Ballmer.
the creepy, it's got the creepy sermon and then field recording of somebody buying drugs. And it was sort of the weird,
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, these are art kids. This is not metal about Vikings and swords and shit, which is good in its own right. This is just something different.
In other words, Drew, what song caught your attention? What tracks caught your attention?
I'm going to skip Dream House entirely. But I'm going to go into Irresistible.
Like I did off.
Something about Irresistible was really cool. It had sort of a longing feel to it. Had like this gentle, almost like the musicality of it, like the music itself was sort of, it felt like this like weird like mix of like this loving yet longing yet like just pulling each which way in it, and all without really saying anything. I think that's kind of cool. You don't get that a lot. Easily, in my opinion, mixtape fodder. For if you're into this sort of thing, it could easily be mixtape fodder. Vertigo, almost 15 minutes long, right? And I saw that and I was like, oh god, we're getting one of these bands. Like, this could very easily go quickly downhill. But Vertigo kept my attention. They made it work. It has the quiet bits, but then it starts hitting that like wall of sound again. And the wall of sound hits, and like Patrick said, it creates like sort of an environment, for lack of a better term. And the weird thing is that I was listening to this record, and at a certain point, like, if you pause the record at any time, you realize how much like pressure is happening if you're listening to it in earphones, which is kind of crazy. And this one very much creates that like weird sort of wall of sound pressure. It was really sort of an ear workout, which is hard to say. It's really odd.
Yeah.
Like the pressure just sort of weighed on your ears, which was a weird feeling to me. And then I'm gonna go a little bit on Brett's side of the aisle at this point. Oh, what the hell was Windows? Holy fuck. The track that I wish wasn't here. The music was repetitive. The sermon parts and like the weird, I guess, drug deal, as Patrick said, were not up enough in the mix for me to hear damned all anything. If you're going to do spoken word parts of on a record, you should use the music you're making under it, accent the spoken word part, and that never happened because it was repetitive and it just droned. And that was sort of the weak part to me. There was some good stuff to be had for me personally, in this record, but that was not it. If I put any of these songs, in regular rotation, that is not going to be one of them. Jesus.
Yeah. So let's go back around the horn. Brett, what would you say would be your final conclusion about this album?
Well, I mean, again, this is my opinion, which, even I know that I'm wrong on a lot of things. Everybody listens to music at one point in their life that they look back on and be like, yep, I listened to some crap. I think that there are a lot of people who will look back and be like, yeah, that was a little pretentious, making music because I can, not because, it's the pinnacle of, musicianship and art. But, I will, die fighting for the rights of people to make bad music. Without bad music, you don't have good music. You just have less good music. I listen to this album and tell me I'm wrong, and I'll be like, okay, your opinion is valid, but my opinion is I had a really, really rough time listening to this album as much as I did.
All right, let's jump a little. I guess tiptoeing over the other side somewhat. Drew, what would be your conclusion about the album overall?
I thought overall it was pretty solid. There were parts that I liked, parts that I didn't like, parts that I was sort of meh about. I think as a whole, they achieved a goal that they were going after, which I think is commendable. Although I don't know if I fully get the concept behind it. Because there was a concept behind this record. I don't know if we touched on that or not. I don't know if they achieved speaking on that, but
as I roll my
they
eyes,
did make a record that had cool music buried beneath things, and sort of hidden and tucked away, and sort of for the music theory nerds out there. And if you're one of those people and you enjoy sort of heavy metal and sort of screaming music, this might be something that you should definitely dive into. It's a trip, if nothing else, and I don't know. I'm always one to give it a go, and now I know at least partially what shoegaze entails. Something I didn't know.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and jump back to the other side. Back to this. I didn't like it.
Preach it, brother. I'll be your crying shoulder.
I want to cue up I guess it's me and Brett are men on film. We're going, hated it. In unison. I was listening to this and I was like, there's something here, I guess. There's something there. There's something interesting going on, but it's taking way too long to do anything, and it sounds annoying, and I just want to listen to K-pop. It's like, I know this is supposed to be really well made and artistic and has an idea to spread, and it's really critically acclaimed. But at some point, I just like, I give up. I stopped it and I just put on some silly K-pop music because that was fun to me. Like, because that's fun to me. And like I understand that this has more value artistically than pretty much all of the K-pop that I listen to, or all the pop music that I listen to, or all the other stuff. But
that's arguable.
That's arguable. But I wasn't having fun at all. And it didn't hook me. I didn't find that value on my own. And it almost felt like I would have to listen to it over and over again to really find that value. And that's really just called Stockholm Syndrome. So, and it needed to just get to the point. But that being said, that's just my opinion, like Brett said. Now let's go back all the way to the other side to Patrick. What would be your conclusions about the album overall?
This is not for everyone. And clearly, I like it. Drew doesn't hate all of it, and Brett and Petey hate it, and that's fine. I honestly, I figured everyone would fucking hate this, but I hoped someone would find something there to latch onto, because for me, I got burned out on metal during sort of the quote unquote new wave of American heavy metal with like Shadows Fall and Lamb of God, and at the same time listening to Opeth and Devin Townsend, who we did a couple of weeks ago. And I got burned out on it because everything sounded like 90s Swedish death metal plus thrash. And this was the first metal album I've heard in a very long time that made me think of something different, that was interesting and was something new to me. And that is why I like it. And I think if you like metal and you can tolerate screamed vocals, this album, I think the more you listen to it, the better it gets. I've been digging into this for a year now, and the more I listen to it, the more I enjoy it. I think there's something crazy going on here that is different. If you thought the cool, crazy wall of sound was cool, but you didn't like everything else, seriously go listen to My Bloody Valentine. They're terrific. Loveless is an amazing record, and I'll probably do that on here at some point too.
I was about to interject with a comment, but then I realized that do you get last word? I'm gonna keep that.
You can have the last word, Petey. Interject.
No, it's the rule.
I am ceding the floor to the man from Miami.
I would reiterate that that's what I called Stockholm Syndrome. But they're listening to it over and going, make yourself like something. But that's beside the point. Those are kind of our complete thoughts on the album. As obviously we're split. Let's get to the main event of the evening, to our haiku reviews, and see how we spun this. I'll start with Brett. Brett, what is your haiku?
An exercise in doing a thing you can, but crap. An exercise in doing a thing you can, but likely should not.
Drew, what is your haiku?
Thought I would hate it. The ear exercise wasn't really all that bad.
My haiku: there's a wall of noise. Some guy is yelling something. Just get on with it. And lastly, Patrick, what is your haiku?
Two disparate sounds brought together in new ways feels so fresh and new.
Yes, I'm bringing soundboards into the show. I'm getting more hacky. Yeah, that's it for our thoughts on this album, Deafheaven. You can listen to this album, for better or worse, on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers the Home Game along with us. Of course, on that playlist is going to be next week's album, and that's going to be provided by none other than Brett. Brett, what do you got for us next week?
Well, we're going to go on a little 3-hour tour. Actually, no, it's not going to be that long. It's an album that's composed. You're not going to have one instrument that's played by a dude No, it's all digital, which is something that I would rarely do, if not for something
Digital.
special. But this will be by Roll Music, ROLEMUSIC. The album is The Pirate and the Dancer. It is an album that was composed on a Game Boy.
So looking forward to that discussion next week. But that's it for us. You can find us all over the internet. Patrick is at the Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Bibbert, HIBBITY Drew is at X. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli TV on YouTube. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Subscribe, share, like, let people know about what we're doing here. Spread the word, spread the gospel of Record Breakers. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
In the morning.
The aristocrats.
Oh, toodaloo.